Food banks across the triangle are bracing for major impacts from President Trump's spending bill. They say many families are already struggling to make ends meet, and this could put them at further risk of food insecurity.
We are in the middle of the worst hunger crisis North Carolina has seen in nearly 20 years.
Tonight, one of the largest hunger relief organizations in the country now anticipating a surge in need as President Trump signs off on his tax and spending bill.
Not only are we going to see a worsening of hunger in our communities immediately, we're going to see long-term economic devastation that I don't think anybody has planned for.
Millions of Americans are able to feed their families thanks to food banks like the one we just showed you. North Carolina food banks alone support over 250 million meals each year. But because of Trump's deep and historic cuts to SNAP, food banks across the country don't know how they'll be able to support an influx of recipients who no longer qualify for the program. Trump is abandoning the very communities he promised to protect. I'm Curtis Bradley Brown, studio director for the Democrats, and your host for today. It's Thursday, July 10th, and this is the Democrats' Daily Blueprint. So last week, Republicans passed a budget that takes a chainsaw to critical programs. This bill means that working class Americans will have less support just so billionaires can pay less in taxes. And that's not an opinion, it's reality. A recent poll found nearly half of U.S. adults believe Trump's budget will hurt them and their immediate family. And nowhere are these harms clearer than in the upcoming changes in food assistance. The Republican bill slashes more than $1 trillion from Medicaid and SNAP, or the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, which has helped feed children, the elderly, and working Americans going through tough times since 1964. Trump and Republicans' cuts to the program will start hurting vulnerable Americans as soon as this year. According to food bank leaders, Trump's SNAP cuts are going to lead to a huge increase in demand. Families who used to go to the grocery store or farmer's market to redeem their now cut SNAP funds won't be able to afford to keep going. Instead, many will now visit their local food bank to keep their families fed. But many food banks are already strained. Earlier this year, Trump and Elon Musk recklessly cut $1 billion in food bank funding. I mean, just look at this headline. They're simply not ready. But it's not just food security at home that's at risk under Trump's historically large SNAP cuts. Millions of children are also now at risk of losing their meals at school and over summer break. And for Republicans who represent communities that rely heavily on SNAP, like Republican Representative David Valadao in California's 22nd Congressional District, where more than 1 in 4 families rely on SNAP, or in states like Louisiana with 2 Republican senators. Their votes to cave to Trump and greenlight the largest food assistance cuts in history is a vote to hurt their very own constituents. And there's nothing pro-family about cutting food assistance. So we're calling out these lawmakers for their hypocritical betrayal of the working class every chance we get. Here's Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear.
It's not just that. It's all the costs from SNAP that are pushed on to states that are going to result in both seniors and children going to bed hungry and waking up hungry. Now, Reverend, I know that you know the miracle, the fishes and the loaves is in every book of the gospel. And you got to think, in a country that grows enough food to feed all its people, surely we can agree that no one should go hungry.
As the governor said, in a country that grows enough food to feed all its people, surely we can all agree that no one should go hungry. And you know what else isn't pro-family? The largest measles outbreak in over 30 years. That's right. Under Trump and RFK Jr.'s so-called leadership, federal officials are scrambling to contain a deadly outbreak of this preventable disease. This is the consequence of vaccine denialism and the wholesale gutting of public health agencies. More Americans getting sicker. So the last thing the Trump admin should be doing is pushing through another round of layoffs at the Centers for Disease Control. Thankfully, when RFK Jr. first tried to implement mass layoffs, they were halted by the combined efforts of Democratic attorneys general across the country who had sued to protect federal workers. Since day one, Democrats have been sounding the alarm on Robert F. Kennedy Jr., whether it's Senator Adam Schiff calling out RFK's conspiracy theories.
He promoted the lie that mRNA vaccines alter human DNA. False. They do not. He suggested without evidence that the COVID vaccine was more dangerous than the virus itself. False. He compared vaccine mandates to Nazi Germany, invoking Anne Frank, a grotesque and offensive distortion of history.
Or Senator Angela Alsobrooks slamming his baseless idea that Black Americans should be on a different vaccine schedule.
What different vaccine schedule should I have received?
I mean, the pollen article suggests that blacks need fewer antigens.
This is so dangerous.
You get the same measles vaccine.
Mr. Kennedy, with all due respect, that is so dangerous.
Maybe we should leave our nation's public health policy to the professionals, the doctors and experts, not to an anti-vaxxer who drinks raw milk and still has a dead worm in his brain. And while we're on the topic of unqualified Trump officials, yesterday Secretaries Pete Hegseth and Kristi Noem convened a meeting of the FEMA Review Council to discuss their joint efforts to respond to natural disasters. At a time when severe storms are wreaking havoc on the Midwest and devastating floods are upending lives in Texas, it's never been more important to have thoughtful, sober leadership. But over the past 6 months, all we've seen from this administration is chaos and confusion. Mass layoffs, budget cuts, and general dysfunction at agencies like FEMA and NOAA have put Americans at risk when severe weather hits their communities. And it's not just Democrats saying this. Republicans are also raising alarms about the impact of hiring freezes. Here's Republican Senator from Kansas, Jerry Moran, on how the staffing shortages have affected his state.
And I share that with my fellow Kansans. We're not immune from significant weather events ourselves. One of those weather events, Dr. Jacobs or Mr. Jordan, occurred in Kansas about a month ago. It was an EF3 tornado. When that tornado occurred, the weather forecast offices in Kansas and across the country, some of them lacked 24/7 coverage given hiring freezes. I worked with NOAA and the Department of Commerce to lift that federal hiring freeze for meteorologists and other specialists to ensure uninterrupted service. Goodland, Kansas, which is on the Colorado line, the western part of our state, was short meteorologists because of that hiring freeze. And we're bringing in or attempting to bring in other meteorologists from other National Weather Service stations, forecast offices.
Natural disasters don't care what politician you voted for in November. We all deserve leaders who don't play politics with public safety. And that's why America deserves better than this Trump administration. All across the country, Democrats support programs that help families put food on the table, help combat epidemics, and help communities recover and rebuild from devastating natural disasters. As food banks grapple with the fallout of budget cuts in the Republican budget bill, they're going to need volunteers and support more than ever. So if you're looking for ways to help, we encourage you to support your local food bank. And that's it for our episode of the Democrats Daily Blueprint. We're here every weekday at 10 a.m. Eastern on the DNC's YouTube page. Until tomorrow.